Hi everyone, Holly here, and in this video I'm going to take you through this painting behind me, which is significant because it's actually my first self-portrait ever. Why have I not ever done a self-portrait before? I don't know. Maybe I just thought that people don't want to buy a piece of artwork with the artist on it. I don't know. Anyway, for me it's a bit of a challenge, and it's a nice change as well. I really like painting figures, but I rarely do that. I don't know why. So I wanted to paint a self-portrait, not just of me on its own. I wanted to paint a self-portrait that also showed the influences in my life that keep me creating art. And one of those is obviously nature. So the second archway here in this painting is of a beach not far from me. It's called Flynn's Beach, and it's at sunrise. It was a beautiful hazy morning, just at the top of the drive as you come down to the beach area. And I love stopping at the top of the hill and taking some quick snaps, because scenery, regardless of where you are really, it's forever changing. And this morning, that particular morning, it was just stunning. So I knew I wanted to add that into a work at some stage, but I just wasn't sure where it would eventually show up in my painting. So what I'll do is I'm going to continue painting along the bottom section. I'll take you through how I work wet into wet and paint some grass and some shrubs down the bottom here. And I'm just going to have a bit of a rant as well about some things that I've recently learned about the Australian government and how they've signed up to something called the 30 by 30 target, which is something that over 100 countries have now signed up to, and why that impacts not only me as an artist, but also future generations, my kids, their kids, not just artists, but everyone in Australia and, in all these other countries as well. So I'll just quickly show you what I've got so far. So obviously it's not finished, work in progress. So I've done, this is an underlayer or underpainting. So I did that across the entire canvas first, just using burnt sienna and some mineral spirits, instead of using acrylic paint this time, just because I'd read that acrylic paints actually move a lot more on the canvas or on the surface. They actually move around a lot more than what was suspected. So underpainting in raw sienna with some solvent. The next layer was straight oil paint from the tube. Obviously my face is a little bit red there, and one eye's bigger than the other, which I need to fix up. So first layer has been done, and that is still underpainting, and I'm currently working on the shrubbery down here. So this is currently wet at the moment, and so I'm just working wet into wet to achieve. My brush is going. So I'm just working wet into wet. Alright, so this section well, all of this is pretty much wet. So all I'm doing is just building up the darks from my reference photo, which I took on my phone on my morning walk. So there's a significant black portion just in there. So this is just straight oil paint from the tube. There's no medium added. Hope that's not too glary. So ivory black, some yellow ochre, and ultramarine blue to give those greeny tinges in there. And then all I do while it's wet, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow light, and I'm just going to add in the bits of grass while the paint is still wet. Obviously you just want to put it down and not touch it. You don't want your lighter colours turning to mud when you're working them over that wet, darker paint. But you also have the advantage that while it is wet, you can actually draw in some leaves and whatnot, and you can actually blend them in to indicate that they're in shadow. So a lot of the grass in the darker area is actually in shadow, but you only want to accentuate the bits that are in the light. They're peeking out. And to do that, you just load your brush up with a little bit of extra paint and draw, paint in. Now when this is dry, what I'll do is most likely come back and bump camera, and I'll just go over the really sunlit bits of grass that need to really pop out. And because this was a sunrise, that beautiful bright golden sun was just coming up, there was a lot of yellow and orange highlights throughout all these grass and bush areas at the edge of the coast. So when this is dry, I'll go back in and really bump up those highlights. So this is really just a kind of a base to come back in the future and work these areas to full completion with all the highlights that need to happen. Or you could just do it now while it's wet. So that's cadmium yellow light, a tiny bit of ultramarine and a fair bit of white just to bump up the opaqueness of the paint and to get those solid highlights down while the paint's still wet. So I recently found out through another YouTuber that Australia actually signed up to something called the 30 by 30 target. And essentially what that means is that by the year 2030, 30% of all Australia's land mass and waterways will be closed to the public. And how are they doing that? They're essentially they've created a buyback scheme, so state governments in conjunction with various conservation organisations and agencies are sourcing land, the government's providing the funds, they're purchasing the land by offering very generous tax breaks to the owners, and then turning the land into a national park and then just shutting it down. So a lot of campers, fishermen, hikers, trail riders, people who ride horses are reporting that they're going to a national park to stay like they always have for years and years, and upon arrival they're greeted with a locked gate that's been recently installed, padlocks, signs, threats of fines, seizures of property and whatnot. So a third of all Australia by 2030 will be closed to the public, land and waterways, which is a real shame because this affects so many people, not just campers and hikers, and it's effectively shutting out the Australian population from seeing and experiencing their own country. And as an artist, I grew up when I was younger exploring the country. My parents, we had a lot of experiences, lots of camping up north Queensland through various jobs and whatnot that my parents had. So by the time I was 10, 11, we had camped pretty much all through Queensland, portions of Northern Territory, and then by my mid-30s, that I could include Victoria in that. I haven't been over to the western coast of Australia yet, but I would like to go. But sadly, by the time I can possibly get over there, everything's going to be shut. There won't be anything to see. So, yeah, that's a real shame. And as an artist, I have a pretty deep connection with the environment through my experiences growing up, and I would like to think that that shows through in my artwork. You know, I don't paint a lot of figures. I paint mostly landscapes, whether that's in a surreal setting, you know, imaginative realism, images, and to have the ability to go and experience the country, Australia's countryside, like, and just gone. You can't, no. Locked out, you can no longer see those areas. It's a real shame. So according to the government website, so you can look this up if you like, just do Australian government 30 in the search bar, and there's just literally pages and pages of all these organisations who just think this is amazeballs. They think they're saving the environment, and whatever you think about climate change and all that, it's this is not the way to go about it, you know. And then that leads into all those things about 15-minute cities, digital IDs. You know, it's this slow, draconian march towards some, you know, Orwellian authoritarian bullshit. So, yeah, very sad. So as of today, which is March 2025, there are currently 76 national parks that are now closed to the general public. So what happens if you decide to go on into one of these national parks? First offence is $750. Second offence is $5,500. $5,500 for a second offence. Third offence is seizure of your property, your vehicles, vans, boats. If you happen to be on the waterway, they will seize your boat, and you have to pay for the removal of that vehicle or boat. So it's not a small fine or consequence by any means, and there have been reports of some very harsh rangers' heavy-handedness that has occurred. So Mount Warning is now closed. I think it's 60% of Mount Kosciuszko is now closed. So families that have ridden their horses through Mount Kosciuszko for many, many years can no longer do so. They've been restricted to certain trails and tracks, and even on those, the rangers have been approaching them and being quite vicious about it. Yeah. So I'm 47 now, so you know, the freedoms that I had when I was a kid and I experienced, they're essentially gone. And there's so many stakeholders that believe that they're doing the right thing by all this, that I wonder how long it will be if any of this gets turned around, turned around. Alright. Backtracked. Halted. You know, it could be years before my kids or their kids can actually go and see places like Uluru, Mount Warning, Kosciuszko, countless other beautiful places within Australia. I think what's that one along the coast? Victoria. The 12 Apostles, I think that's been canned. Don't quote me on that one. I'll have to have a look at the list. Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of just lucky that I've moved to a coastal town where I can, you know, it's a short drive to the beach, and at the moment we can still access the mountains inland from us as well. So yeah, that's how I paint foliage, bushes, shrubs, grass. So using the wet in to wet technique is a really good one for that. So yeah, hope you learnt something today. Go and look up the 30 by 30 for yourself. And if you don't live in Australia, you know, go and see if your country is signed up to this, because it's, you know I didn't sign up for it. I didn't vote for it. Again, it's, you know, unelected people making decisions for our entire countries. For what, really? Yeah. Have a good day.